It's showing it streaming live.
It does say that. All
Should I
right.
do it? Should I do a trick?
What's that?
Should I do a trick? And
So it'll take us some time to come up though, but yeah, it says that's streaming live, so we'll see.
okay.
We'll just give it a couple minutes just so I can see our faces on there.
Yeah.
All right. So hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Majestic Michelle, your spiritual life coach, psychic empath. And what I do is that I help people release negative emotions trapped by trauma and negative events from their childhood. I use a modality called the Akashic Records to do this. Cheri, introduce yourself to everyone, please.
Hi, I'm Cheri Huss from Nebraska. Um, I am a psychic medium and I do dabble in a little bit of what you do, not the way you do it. I do like divination cards, and I mostly try to help heal people with closure when people pass. So, and I work with angels, so it's been interesting.
Okay, cool. So tonight we're going to talk about discernment. Discernment is a big part, I think, of what's really going on in this world today. And it can really help guide us as that compass to know exactly what feels right for us and what doesn't. So, Cheri, if you would like to talk about how you use discernment, what it means to you, and how you use it in your life.
And, I think to me, discernment is it's a little bit different than intuition because it to me it feels like you're pulling in some judgment calls as well based on life experience, whereas intuition is more like that gut feeling, you know, the survival factor maybe. And for me, the way I use it in my practice, um, there was a time when I would just read for anybody and I would help everybody and not think too much about it. But discernment for me looks like calling in my guides and my angels or my protection, um, and also knowing when to not read for someone as well as when to tell them that they need to find someone else for a while or not come back for a while with the same problem. It's yeah. When it starts to feel like I'm taking their power or they're giving me their power, it's like no, I'm out for a while. So does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Extremely. We were talking about that earlier today on how discernment is all about also with our businesses, like knowing which clients are for us and which ones are not,
Yeah.
being able to pass them along to somebody else who would be able to help them very gracefully. I know for my business, discernment, I talked about how you can help people like three levels below you and three you can get learn from people three levels above you. And so there's always that little, you know, buffer area right there. But for me, it's like with my clients, if they're in that third level, I have a little like beginner type consultation that I put them in to see if they're really ready for to move on, if they're really ready to do the work. And if they're not, then at the end of that consultation type program that we go through, it's like, okay, we'll see you, like come back when you're ready to actually do some of this work
Yeah.
because it's very beneficial when we can learn to do our own work. Because we also talked about earlier how, like when my clients outgrow me, that means I've done my job and they are able to move on to that next step for their life.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, with everything that's going on in the world, how do you check in with your discernment?
I honestly, having a Christian background, I always line up with if the end of the world happened and I had to explain myself all of a sudden, and I had to beat around the bush or to make excuses or get sheepish about it, it's probably something I shouldn't be dealing with, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if my clients need that, I have enough people that I know that are into different modalities of healing that I could tell them to go look up, and I feel okay with that.
So for me, it's like it's more checking in with the gut to go, does this feel right for me? Doesn't it feel right for me? Discernment to me is also all about knowing who you are as a person, to know when something comes in and the majority is doing it, going, but am I part of that majority or not?
Right.
And being okay to go, nope, it's not my journey. I'm good.
Yeah.
And holding those decisions and honoring just those consequences too for that. Because we all know, like in today's world, there's consequences for everything that's going on right now. And it's okay if that's who you are.
Right.
No matter what you choose.
With keyboard warriors, you really have to guard your words and really know what you believe in and really know what you're saying, like what feels right. Because 10 years from now, those words can come back and bite you, or even 10 hours. And sometimes we're mindlessly scrolling and stuff on Facebook or on YouTube, and we're not really paying attention. And so part of discernment is knowing when to, give your opinion and when not to, and when to know the truth versus opinion so that you don't get bitten from it later.
Yep. I mean, I've fallen into that trap a couple times where I've let my emotions dictate a post versus checking in with discernment first, or even to fact check doing my own work to see if it was right. And sometimes when that emotions get the best of us, that is also when we let down those guards of our own discernment and go outside of who we are. And when those backflashes come back, it always tells me, like, whoa, wait a minute, I did not do this and I need to double check. Thank you for keeping me in check. I don't look at it as that, oh my God, I was just attacked and I was just thrown under the bus. And I was like, nope, it was just brought to my awareness that I did not honor my own stuff.
Right.
Bringing it back to us, right? So how do you help your clients with discernment?
I always, I guess we have a discussion about their belief systems and why they believe that. And sometimes of course, I'm doing shadow work right now in a class. And so I kind of investigate with them, try to get to as close to the root of the problem as possible. It's always just an hour session, so I deal with that too. But I always ask them what their belief system is and how they came to that. And are they comfortable with that belief system? And are they comfortable exploring a little bit past that safely? And I said, at the end of the day, if you can look yourself in the mirror and still know who you are and what you believe in, I said, then it's okay. I know with my line of work, a lot of people come in, I don't know, it's cards and you're talking to dead people and they're very scared of that. I used to be the same way, so I don't even take it personally, but I'm just like, I use my discernment and I don't work with the bad stuff. I just stay away from it. So I encourage them to do the same.
Because I know, like, with me, I've always known, like, I had gifts. I've always been curious. When I was younger and that stuff, I tried to fit in. For many years, I tried to fit in, and it was like, it didn't work, and it didn't work, and it didn't work. And no matter what I did, I was like, nothing was working because I wasn't made to fit in. And as soon as I started using discernment and figuring out who I was, learning who I was, knowing who I was, and what I'm actually capable of and doing, then everything started to change. And I was able to understand really more what discernment meant and not getting wrapped up into that new fad
Right.
that coming into town. Because, spiritual work, we all know that there's always a new fad, right? And how do you not get yourself pulled into that new fad with using discernment? So how do you work with that? How do you not get pulled into that new fad, or how do you decide if that new fad is for you?
I think I research as much as possible. I've got about 4 or 5 friends that do this, and they're all from different walks of life. And I get their take on it, and I do some more research, and I sit with it a lot, and I just really think about it. And yeah, some of them it's really tempting because it's flashy and it's new and it's exciting because we all get in our rut. Um, and then I, and so then I just kind of look at it to ask myself, how can I make what I'm doing in my own lane more attractive and more, I don't know what the word is, suitable for others, I guess.
Okay.
I try to meet people right where they're at, and these new fads don't always do that.
So, like, yeah, for me, when that new fad comes in or whatever, I always look at it and I always do research, do that gut check. And then I also check in to go, how would this work with what I already do? Because I know that there's people out there that have all these little like modalities and they do this and a little bit of everything. But I would rather be a master in one area. Because, the people who know a little bit of things, all the jack of all trades, right? But master of none.
Right.
They're the ones that people go to for help. But when they need a specialist, they're not the ones they're going to go to.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was like, no, this is my specialty, the Akashic records and doing the shadow work and retrieving soul fragments. So when something new comes in, it's like, how does that play into who I am and what I already do? And if it does not easily incorporate, then I say, okay, thank you for bringing my awareness to it, but it's not for me at this time.
Yeah.
And I just kind of walk away and put it away and going, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
And when somebody says what they do, it's like, okay, cool. Because I don't have to get offended. I don't have to get upset. I don't have to get mad that somebody else does it because I chose not to.
Right. Yeah. And it's hard when you see, if you're struggling in your business trying to attract clients, it is tough to see those people that are just a flash in the pan out there with stuff and they're not really sure what they're doing. I think for my practice, I used to do like one-on-one with Holy Spirit. I still do the same work, but it's different lingo now. And I guess I'm that reader that's always going to want to take you back to who you are. Like what, how do I say this? I guide them back to source, whether it's God or whatever. Um, and I guess that's how I discern what I'm doing is correct, because I don't want to push my beliefs off onto somebody else. And I don't want to take in what you're saying doesn't already work, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So those gut checks are super important, what you were saying. Yeah.
So, do you have a question about discernment or an angle you would like to ask?
For myself or for the audience?
For the audience. Or for yourself, either one.
If no one else has one, I would just ask that. I mean, I know what the answer is for me, but so when somebody, like, let's just say at a fair, because that's coming up, when somebody walks past your booth as a worker, as a spiritual worker, and it's real bad energy, how do you politely decline? I know I've just said, so and so over there works with this more, that I know they would be a better fit with. Is that kind of the right way to approach that? Because the energy can be really off and through the reading, I
It
would
can
think.
be really off, but as long as you're comfortable and confident with it, going, that's not my area of expertise. Maybe this person over here would be more of a better fit for them there. And with discernment and everything else, the universe is going to reward you a lot better with that too.
Yeah.
Because they're going to go, wait a minute, you're passing that on knowing that they're not going to get from you what they're truly looking for. And then do you think discernment is something that has to be developed? Or do you think it's stuff that it just comes from learning? Like, does it have to be practiced?
Learning sounds correct.
Learning sounds correct. So why do you say that?
Because intuition is a God-given gift. Like we all have that survival instinct, um, and it's evolved to be called intuition. But discernment, if you've gotten burned a few times, you learn not to go back to those kind of situations. Or if you feel that certain energy that makes you feel really uneasy, you just have to learn the hard way a few times. And then I think that's a gift that develops more than it is just boom, there it is. Now,
Got it.
some people do have that spiritual gifting, but not everyone does.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's something that has to be learned.
Hmm.
Because even as like from your childhood and that stuff, you may learn discernment is completely different than what it really is. So then when you get into adulthood, you kind of have to relearn
Right.
what it is for you. Because as kids in that we learn what it is for our parents. We learn what it is for the schools and our teachers. And not a lot of kids are taught how to have discernment for themselves,
Right.
how to make that choice and stick with it and stand by it. Because again, discernment's all about, having that choice and standing by it.
Well, society nowadays is kind of shutting that down, that discussion in the classroom and even at church where there's a lot people aren't supposed to talk about or put your belief system on them. And if they're not getting it at home either, it is tougher on, I think, on some kids today. They really have to go through some hard knocks to get it.
Right. They do. I mean, and kids today also with their overscheduling and parents running around going, oh, this is what has to be done in order for my kid to get into that perfect college or to get into that perfect school. They need to have this in their background and they need to be the captain and they need to be like the leader of this. And so they're doing all these extracurricular activities, but yet they're not taking time to sit with themselves to know who they are. And by the time they are, it may, like a lot of stuff may have happened that they may not have realized probably should not have happened because they were never taught to just sit and relax and to know who they are. And they were taught to be busy and to keep their minds busy and to pretty much not think.
Yeah. Autopilot.
The busier we keep our kids, the more we're actually teaching them how not to think because they don't have time to think.
Yeah. And process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm having a lot of teenagers now start coming to me.
Okay.
And I'm a little leery because I know their parents and their parents are big in church or the community. And so I share what I can with them, but I also have to be discerning in what I share with them
Mm-hmm.
because some things are not going to align with their family values. And I tell them that I said, spirituality is totally different than what we're taught in the home when we're young, like that's everybody's journey.
Right.
And so, I just tell them if it really resonates with you and you know it's right in your heart and you thought about it, prayed about it, whatever you need to do, meditate on it, then do it. But, then again, their minds are still developing. So it is a tougher crowd, but the ones that are waking up really want to know what that how to discern right from wrong
Hmm.
and truth from dishonesty and stuff. And so it's exciting. I mean, because they're our future,
Right.
it's just tough because you don't know what you're supposed to share and what you're really not sometimes.
Yeah. I know my kids growing up, the phrase in our household was make a better choice. Do you really think that's going to get you what you want?
Hmm.
And then they have to stop and think about it like, maybe that's not. Or my son, when we would go skiing, he would get really hot during while skiing. And I think it was like 5, and he took off his jacket and he put it into the locker. And his ski coach was like going, so he refused to put his jacket on after lunch. I go, okay, that's fine. He probably just got really hot and didn't want it on anymore. And he was like, what? I go, kid has choices. He knows he has a jacket. He knew where he put it. If he wanted it when he guys came down, he would have went and got it. Perfect. I'm totally okay with that. And he was like going, okay. I'm like, I let my kids make their decision on whether or not they're hot or cold. There's some days where it'd be like going, you don't want to wear a jacket? That's fine. Can you bring one with? You might need it later. And
Yeah.
they'd be like, okay, yeah, sure. They always end up putting it on.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
that's teaching them how to use their own discernment at a younger age at their level. Instead of telling them what to do, you give them those choices so that way they can decide for themselves. So as they become adults, they know how to make those choices.
We're not going to be with them all the time. I know with my daughters, my son's not quite as much. Um, but my daughters especially, I remember as a teenager, my mom was always like, "Oh, don't do this and don't do that and stay away from this." But she never really taught me what to do if I unwittingly got into that mess. And so when I had daughters, we did a lot of role playing from the time they were quite young on different things, on being bullied to going to parties to dating and everything. But okay, so this is a situation. I'd give it to them. How do you handle this? Who do you call for help? Who do you look around the room and who can call for backup or whatever. And so I tried to teach them to use their best discernment and judgment in situations by going through it a number of times in their heads. Maybe they could have something in their toolbox, to pull from when they needed it. And I hope that helped. I don't know, but we just do the best we can, I guess.
Right. I mean, sometimes, raising kids with discernment is hard today because there's so many other outside factors that come in. They want to be just like their friends because I know growing up, I wanted to be like every other kid in school. And my parents would not buy me any of the newer clothes, the stylish clothes. And it was the 80s, and I was like, they're like, nope, I'm not gonna do it. And I still had to deal with hand-me-downs from my cousins and that stuff until I was like, nope, I have a babysitting job, I'm buying my own clothes. In order to even start to even think that I was looking like, you know. So I was like, it was just really interesting, like having that and going, oh. And now I look back at it going, okay, I wish I would have done things maybe a little bit differently back then. Um, but I think I still would have like bought the clothes and that stuff, but not so hard to try to fit in as them.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's a shame that kids don't realize. Now, these young ladies that are coming to me for some guidance, um, I it's amazing to me because they have that discernment that I didn't have at that age. The awareness that they have is just, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, incredible. Like they said, I don't know. I just woke up one day and I felt different, and all of a sudden I'm curious, and they are better judges of character and situations than I was in my 20s. So I think that gives us a lot of hope, us out there doing this kind of work.
Yeah. It's becoming more and well known,
Yeah.
more popular again, because it was really popular like 3,000 years ago,
Right.
right? And then it became unpopular.
Yeah. I
Uh,
know. And the discernment aspect of it too, like these girls are asking me about crystals, and I feel comfortable talking about that with most of them, and I'm like, if you're really concerned about it, research. But they're wanting they're already wanting to get into divination. I mean, they're just coming at me with like bigger guns, at a young age. And that's a piece I really talk to them about is discernment because they don't have the life experience yet. They have the heart for it, but um, sometimes things that look really good and wholesome just really are the opposite. So they need to be careful.
right.
And I don't know.
Oh,
I'm just
totally.
definitely
Um,
glad I'm not a kid anymore.
yeah, I mean, kids are they're more aware of their gifts.
Hmm.
Um, I know for me, it was kind of like that hush hush, don't talk about it. You might have a mental illness, kind of
Yeah.
a
Yep.
thing going on. And so it wasn't talked about. It wasn't supposed to ever be talked about. It was that taboo that also growing up with made me feel like really different because I had to hide who I was. So then with having the discernment to bring myself out and into the open and allow people to see that, some of that discernment is like, how do we know when we have to let friends go because they no longer fit who we are? And some of that also is more like we don't have to choose, because if we are growing in our path and they're not okay with it, they're just going to fall off anyways. And that's all okay. And that's, it's having that discernment to know that, hey, we are in two different spots now. That it's okay that you're this way and I'm this way. We can respect each other and still move in our direction. So it's that having that discernment to know when it's time to let it go because the paths are completely different. Have you ever come across anything like that in your journey? Love the eye look there.
Yeah. I'm having this conversation with middle schoolers on up to women in their 60s and 70s, like, oh, I had to lose this friend because I had this spiritual awakening kind of thing going on and nobody understands me. I'm like, it's okay. You know, Source is making room to clear out all that stagnant energy and make room for new. And so I try to normalize the not so normal and new for them. And
Mm-hmm.
before you know it, they're up and running. They figured it out faster and faster. So yeah.
Right. Because, I mean, even with, when we go through our growth and we change and we use that discernment to release what's no longer serving us, there's always something else on the other side that we're going to be able to open up into.
Yeah.
But if we also don't use that discernment and let go on what's back here, we're not going to gain this over here. Otherwise, that if we do, we're going to be kind of walking like that fine two-world line right there, going, do I go here? Do I go here? Do I go here?
Yeah.
And again, you're going to feel like you're being pulled because you're not using your discernment to go, oh, it's time.
Mhm. I see that with people that keep coming back for readings or trying to, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of that edgy, like this kind of, energy around them. And finally, I had to have that talk with them. I said, "You're looking for outside validation and outside answers. Everything is within you. You need, the wisdom. And if you sit with that and get quiet, and sometimes I have to help them meditate for the first time, or even teach them to pray, which has, been interesting and kind of learn. to listen for that small voice inside of yourself, and that seems to be a good compass for them because after that discussion, they don't usually come back too often after that. So,
Because as long I mean, as soon as they learn that skill too,
yeah,
they're just like, oh, maybe I don't need it, like need that validation as much.
yeah,
Or maybe they decided that, oh, you're not willing to validate me. It could go either
yeah,
way, but it's still you're using your discernment to go, hey, this is what you need to be doing to better yourself.
right,
And it's us to go, and I'm okay if you never come back
yeah.
for
It's like,
any reason.
yeah, you work yourself out of a job if you do it right.
Right, exactly. That's why I tell people, I go, no, if I do this right, I work myself out of a job. And truthfully, it's like, in a way, it's like I want to.
Right,
I mean, with working with the dark shadows and the Akashic records and the negative emotions, I want everyone to be clear of those.
exactly. Yeah, I want everyone to win.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm like, we all have the ability when we first came down here to win. Let's bring that back.
yeah. I think spirituality handles these issues a lot better because society just says, shut up, conform, stand in line, you know, be as individual as the next person the same way. And spirituality, we are allowed to stand out and help others shine just as brightly, and it's not a threat.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the
Exactly.
same concept. We're just handling it um, like we're spiritual beings, not little human robots, you know.
Right.
And I have to
Right.
remind people
Exactly.
that
If
that's
we
what they
look
are.
at Yeah, if we look at everyone as if they are a spiritual being,
Hmm.
then we can guide them through to learn their own discernment at a younger age. So that way we can raise a healthier generation than what's really going on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So how do you use your discernment in today's world? What's happening the last year?
You know, I was in nursing for a long time, and so if I know there's sick people that my little cough could really hurt them, then I just totally avoid that. You know, I guess I don't know. Like I I'm some in the middle. There's some people that are just anti-mask, anti-government, anti what I mean. Everybody's anti something these days. And what I do, I guess, basically, is I just try my darndest to err on the side of mercy and grace every day,
Mm,
um, and compassion, because the world obviously doesn't need one more ugly person screaming, you know, and they respond so differently when you just show them unconditional love and understanding,
mm-hmm.
and they just want to be seen,
Right.
And I think if we can give them that, we'd have a whole different world on our hands a lot faster.
I mean, I am one of those anti-maskers, but I'm also not one that's going to throw it in other people's faces.
Hmm.
So it's like when I know which stores I can go into, I know which restaurants I can go into, and then those are just the ones that are going to get my money. I'm okay with that because this is my choice of, getting discernment. This is my choice.
Right.
This is what the universe the world is presenting right now. So how do I maneuver through this with my choice without throwing it in other people's faces, without going in and saying that, hey, you're doing this, this, and this to people, so you need to stop because, yeah, I can see some of the things that they're doing, but again, it's not my job to tell them to stop.
Right. Yeah.
It's their job to realize it.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like going, okay, I just, go, nope, I'm okay with this and with this. I know
Yeah,
who gets my money and who doesn't.
for sure. Yeah, and I also believe that we weren't made to live forever. having the nursing background, and a lot of classes like microbiology and things, you learn that we have an immune system, and every surface is tainted, and here we are, and I get there's risks that are different now, but I just have chosen to believe, using my discernment, that I have an immune system. I've changed my eating. I've changed, like, I've lost weight. Like, I'm doing everything I can. I think that's all we can do. Some people are going to have a higher risk, so they need to use their discernment and assess the risk differently than we do as healthy individuals,
Right.
instead of screaming at every person that's different,
Right.
mind your business, but they don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're really miserable and unhappy.
I totally get that because I use my discernment on my body, my choices, my food all the time.
Yeah.
And when people are like going, oh, this is what's going on, it's like, well, that's your choice.
Yeah.
And that's where you're at. And I'm, like, if you want to change that, then like go see somebody who can help you.
I
You know,
just
and if you
smile and say, there's a Facebook group for that.
there's a Facebook group for everything.
Yeah. Like, you can go complain there.
Right?
And
I
you know
work
what?
really hard at not complaining on Facebook because, again, discernment.
Yeah.
Facebook is like the universe. It's going to come back and slap you in the face every year if you don't figure it out.
Yeah.
So that's, again, discernment. Like, where do you post this stuff? I mean, because, you don't want it just like there for everyone to read every year or something, or for people to a month down the road read and go, oh, I'm sorry. And then it brings it right back to that point when
I
you
had
may
that
have already let
happen.
it go.
Yeah. I made a comment 4 years ago, and it was pretty innocent, but somebody read it too fast and just jumped all over me. And I thought, I'm not even responding. That was 4 years ago. I just giggled about it, but it was, yeah, it made me stop and think what I was posting for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
mean, there's a reason why Facebook has those day reminder dates, right? On this day reminder.
yeah.
Because they're going to remind you what you posted, what your energy was like.
Yeah. Definitely from the
And
last 4 years, I've changed a lot, because that's about the time I started stepping into all of this. And sometimes those memories crop up. I didn't mean it judgmentally, but now I can see how it would be taken. You know what I mean? Like, I was posting stuff about religious posts because that's who I was back then. But I can see how that would hurt somebody that has different belief systems, or has a family member that's not in sync with all of that other stuff.
so, that one I would be totally okay with because that's you.
Hmm.
Um, I have, friends who are Jewish and they constantly post Jewish stuff. And I'm like, cool, that's them.
Yeah.
But I'm talking more about like oh, I hate this person and I'm frustrated at this person and, that kind of stuff that's going to come back, those negative postings
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
that are going to come back and like hit you in that face every year, to go, hey, remember when you were like this? And
Yeah.
you may have changed to where you're not that person anymore, but Facebook universe is going to remind you.
Oh, I know. Yeah. That's when you hit delete, delete, delete.
So it's like we really need to have discernment
Yeah.
on social media in a majorly big way on what we post, what we talk about,
Yeah.
what we share, what we're like, how much we want to expose ourselves. I think that's the other thing with discernment that is really kind of like not really like irritating. There's another word, but frustrating probably.
Hmm.
Um, is that the younger generations share everything. There's nothing that's sacred anymore to them.
Hmm.
And if they did a good deed, they're sharing it again. And they're talking about it. And I was like, okay, as soon as you do that, discernment tells me that that's ego.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's, to me, it's like, we got to bring that discernment back into the life And again, what to share, what not to share, and when things are okay to just hold things sacred.
Right.
Because it's okay for us to have things that are just for us.
Yeah, exactly. Now that I have a big awareness, of how shadow works and the chakras that it affects, I think I have a lot more. I always did, but I have even more compassion for people now because I'm like, that's that's an inner child wound, or that's a mother wound, or that's. And so I really can see that through the lens of grace more even than I did before, which is interesting. And people don't realize that they're splattering all their insecurities and all of their wounds out for everyone to see. They just think that I have an opinion, you're going to hear it. I think if people realize how that was taken, they might kind of back it up just a little, at least. Maybe not everyone, but I think a lot of us would.
Yeah. I know I've realized some posts like, oh, yeah, no, not again. Because it's like, no, we're not going to go there. Because it's like, yeah, some things are just between you and your source. And, how, and that discernment to know when it is just between you and your source. Like it comes back to learning how to get quiet and being okay going inside and being quiet and honoring your body as the spiritual host for this lifetime.
Yeah. I noticed I worked for the schools for a little while, and I worked for kind of a government teaching thing. There's a lot of parents that aren't teaching their little kids on what we talk about in public and what we don't. Like there were things that you couldn't unhear, and there were things that you have to know your families, you know. But yeah, discernment starts at home, and if you're not teaching your children um, and other children in the family how to be discerning on what you share and the topic, how are they going to learn it?
Right.
Because we live in a world where we don't have our own freedom. I mean, everyone's attached to their phone. Everyone knows what you're doing and where you're at. Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
it's our job as parents, I believe, to teach it because the world's not teaching it.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And the world is not going to because they like, okay, as long as everyone thinks that, hey, we're going to bring everything out to the open, now we're going to make everyone the same because people are going to go, this is not fair, this is not fair, this is not fair. But yet, what's fair for me is not fair for you.
Right.
Because we're two different people, we're on two different paths, we're on two different journeys. And having that discernment to know that, what's right for me is not right for somebody else or is not fair for somebody else. We cannot expect our lives to be totally the same.
Yeah.
Because that'd just be boring if everyone was like me.
Yeah. It'd be amazing, but boring, right?
So, do you have anything else you would like to add tonight?
I don't think so. I think as long as we're putting out, look, if you just look at people the way you want to be seen and speak to them the way they want that you would like to be spoken to, and the way you'd want to be treated, the discernment is there. You don't have to think about it too hard if you just live by the golden rule, even
Right.
really,
Yeah.
and look through that lens. I think it would be a much easier topic of conversation for people to grasp.
Cool. So, how can people find you?
I
Do you
am,
have a website, Facebook page, group page?
well, right now I'm working on getting a website, but I am at Spirit Closer with Cheri, Cheri on Facebook. And you can PM me on Facebook. It's under Cheri Huss, Huss. And right now, those are probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. And I'm working on that still. So, but yeah, I'd love to hear from everybody.
Cool. You can get a hold of me at healingwithmichelle.com, with michelleadams.com. I'm also on Facebook with Healing at Michelle Adams and on the Akashic Record group page on Facebook. So there's a few different ways you guys can go ahead and find me. If you message me, I do reply and answer back within probably 24 hours. So go ahead. Love to hear from you guys. So thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yes, thank you.